have you a gentleman? I've seen this on TV before, so.
Oh, have you? So you know how to be a gentleman. Please, you will take photos for me.
So
Will you take nice photos for me?
you know my
You
phone.
didn't send me yesterday's photos.
I'll do that. Can I use your phone, rather?
I would love you to. Yeah.
Yes.
Can I make an announcement? Oh, is the minister not here yet? Is he in the building though?
You were saying about your phone?
So there's no way I can use this, eh?
Yes.
No, I mean there's no way I can use the mic. Yeah. Okay. I think
Which cab is that? This cab?
Let them do it here.
Can I use your phone?
Yes, you can, but yeah, will you take one or two here, and then I just need it though for the
Sure.
actual. One, two. Over there. Okay, no problem. But we're just waiting for the finance minister. Yes. Yes, you're going to need to, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and then I'll just make...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you. The Minister is just in the holding room and he will join us shortly. But a warm welcome to the Minister when he comes, because I won't be able to be here. SABC will be taking over. Also, welcome to the Deputy Minister, David Masondo, will also be joining us. The Commissioner, much loved Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, he's here and looking around the room with a big smile at his clients. The National Treasury team, warm welcome to you, Premier Alan Winde, and a warm welcome to you too. And our previous Minister Trevor Manuel, as well as our previous DG, Maria Rambos is here. Minister, good morning, Minister. I was just mentioning that Trevor Manuel is the man who started this early morning event, so you've got him to blame to get you up so early after last night and a long day. So all of you, a very warm welcome. I also just want to mention a very special person here, Dr. Imtiaz of Gift of the Givers. A very warm welcome to you. You're doing wonderful work out there. So, Minister, thank you very much. Thank you so much for making the time. It's a long day. You've delivered a wonderful. Congratulations are there. But I hand you over to SABC now. Thank you.
All right, a very, very good morning to everybody. I'm not sure if we're live yet on SABC, but they'll take us at any moment now. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today to host our Finance Minister, and it's wonderful to have you in the room with us. In fact, I'm going to even get you to come and sit on the stage with us now, if you don't mind. I'm going to get you onto the podium. And while you do that, I can see we're not live yet. I'm sure they'll come to us any moment now. Just for all of you to know that we are going to be on live television. So I can see we're on now. So you don't want to be doing anything you don't want people to see. All right, so just behave yourselves on the camera. So please put your phones on silent as well, and make sure that everything is sort of as smooth as we possibly can. So pleasure to be here as the SABC and to be hosting this event. I'm just going to ask the gentleman, if you don't mind, to bring my phone to me. No, not the microphone, my phone that I left on the podium. I do need that one. It is on the podium, so if you can bring it to me as well, my phone. If you could please bring my phone that's on the podium. Thank you very, very much. This has got all the information I need in secret messages, Minister. That's a joke. No secret messages, I can promise you and assure you. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
I'm good. How did you feel yesterday?
Bit of a tension, but I'm fine.
Yeah?
Yes.
Bit of fun. I could see you were having a bit of fun. When you smiled, I felt a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, when you see your finance minister smiling, you think, okay, maybe we good.
You
maybe
should smile when you put more money in people's pockets.
Was that the aim? I mean, of course, this is your maiden budget, so there's a lot of pressure on you. There really is.
You know, there's some analyst, Peter Multato, said, no, it's partly his, it's partly not his.
Yeah.
Because he joined at the tail end, at the start, when the budget was already in progress. So he said there may be some of his footprints, but it's not necessarily his footprints.
So when you sit down and you do this budget, I mean, South Africa, you're coming into this position. South Africa coming from a very difficult 2 years of a pandemic. Before that, we're already in a recession. You sit down, you know South Africans are struggling, and you need to start balancing. It's suddenly you've got to become a trapeze artist where you've got to walk along this fine line of not going that way and not going that way, but staying in the middle. How did you come to the conclusions that you did in this year's budget?
You know, we have a capable team in National Treasury. You know, when I joined them, I said to them, you know, look, guys, I don't believe that thing is going to get worse than where it is at the moment.
Yeah.
The only thing it if we work hard, we could turn around. And it's because of you as a team. And unfortunate for them, I'll get the credit.
That's what always happens. Well, you'll take the credit because people are smiling this morning, but
Yeah.
if they weren't, you just blame it on the team. They make me do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it is, I mean, South Africans, obviously, we've come a far way. You're seeing that the tax revenue has increased. So this is giving you a lot more room to play, I should say, and pay, because you've got to pay this debt back. And this is the worry. So let's talk about this, the debt that South Africa is in right now, and how you plan on managing this going forward.
You know, first I must understand what is the cause of this problem. There are different viewpoints. You know, I was reading an article by Ricardo Hassman. I was introduced to Ricardo Hassman, by the way, by former Minister Trevor Manu. Two economists he introduced to me is Ricardo Hassman and Justin Lim. So Ricardo Hassman says, part of the problem we did when we were trying to do the stimulus, starting from the 2008 onwards, was to do a stimulus. When we were doing a stimulus, we put more money on public wages. So that becomes a problem. Since then, we're having above inflation increases. And came, of course, the own goal, which is the state capture and corruption, which all of those things complicated the matter. So, first things first is to say we've got to manage the growth of the wage bill. We've got to manage the growth of, the expenditure which has gone into bailing out state-owned enterprises. Between 2013 and now, we spent about 290 billion rand purely in trying to bail out state-owned enterprises. How did we do that? A, that. Two, taking more money from line function departments which undermine service development, about 257 billion. So part of that is to begin to gradually, A, contain the growth of this consumption expenditure and shift expenditure towards a growth investment in infrastructure and so on.
So it's one thing saying we're going to invest. Minister, you don't need to use the microphone. You can pop it down. There we go. The one thing is that you can do so much and no more. You can allocate funds in certain directions and say, okay, we're going to use this for infrastructure, we're going to create jobs here, we're going to do this, these are the avenues and the gaps. And yet, what happens is that this doesn't actually filter through to the people, and these jobs are not created, and the infrastructure doesn't happen. In fact, we see anything but the infrastructure happening. And this is the frustrating part. How do you get your vision across? Because the problem seems that the money is there, the political will isn't there. How do you bring them to meet each other?
I suspect the political will is also there. The president was talking about something that traumatized him a great deal. He went to launch Excited a road project, and he discovered that after asking people and look at how much did the road cost, it was almost 12 million per kilometer. So, as we speak, everybody, including driven by the president, is to make sure that we can contain that kind of fruitless expenditure and make sure that we deliver efficiently and effectively.
Easier said than done, because it hasn't happened in so long.
Now, if it comes from the top, so there should be political will, it's easy to get it done.
Yeah, and repercussions for those that don't do it.
Yes, obviously there must be consequence management.
Yeah. All right, in the room, we've got so many people, and I know a lot of people want to ask you questions, so I'm going to already start because we don't have too much time. We've just got an hour, and in between that, a whole bunch of ad breaks. So I'm going to already start you to ask you to put up your hands if you've got questions. We're going to send the mics around already in the corner over there. I can see one. So if we can get the mics going to everybody that puts up their hands, and we'll continue to chat so that I know that the mics are already in the hands of those that want questions.
You know what normally happens? I said to my team, you know what?
Yeah.
Normally politicians were not normally bright people.
You don't normally bribe people.
We're not normally bright people. You go into a meeting, you make the right noise and get elected.
Yeah.
And if you're fortunate, you find yourself being a minister. So to help yourself, you've got to have a good technical team.
You're absolutely right. I know. You are so right about this. Minister, while I've got you here, obviously the breaking news that is coming out this morning, and we are seeing what's happening in the Ukraine and with Russia. This puts a new angle, I imagine, on all economies around the world and to South Africa as well. We're seeing Brent crude that has now gone through the $100 mark. Financially, is this going to knock us as South Africans? I'm sure you've been thinking about it for a while, but it's hit us by a big surprise this morning that this war has started.
I mean, it is good. I mean, so far, my own analysis is that these events offset each other. Right, you've got the price of crude oil going up, which will impact on our fuel prices. But at the same time, we have seen the price of coal and other commodities going up. And as exporters of that, we're likely to benefit from that. So it's difficult at this stage to say which one is likely to be the major impact on us, on ourselves.
Yeah, but it is something that we're watching
very
closely.
We're very watching closely.
Yeah. You talk about the petrol price and the fuel prices, and I think we're all very relieved that you didn't increase the levies, because I don't think we can handle this anymore on the petrol price. I mean, the Road Accident Fund, I think since the 1990s, this is the first time it hasn't been raised. Were you hearing the calls to not only not raise it, but to reduce the taxes? Because even now, with Brent crude going up to the levels that it is, this petrol price is going to keep on soaring. I don't think we as South Africans can afford this.
Look, there are distortions on the fuel price, no doubt about that. First, from the basic fuel price itself, there are distortions. You can still knock some few cents out of it. And secondly, more than 40% of it is administered prices in what you have on your, what you pay in your, when you go to the petrol station. 40% of every liter is administered prices.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we are distorting the price of fuel. We need to think how do we deal with that.
Yeah, I think so, because it's a lot. It is costing a lot to fill, and people are
It's
struggling.
something we're discussing. Minister Mandash and I have put up our teams to look into the future of the fuel price.
Grants. As you can see, I'm going fast here because of timing. Welfare grants is a wonderful thing, and I had a conversation with the SARS commissioner now, saying that, you know, it's lovely that we are able to assist South Africans where we can. And I mean, we're sitting at a point where around about 18 million South Africans are dependent on some form of grant or the other. But is this affordable? I mean, when you sit and you look at this, and we're not creating jobs, so more and more people are becoming dependent on these grants, how can we maintain this? This surely is something you're very, very worried about.
Look, somebody has accused me of being anti-poor when I'm trying to argue in a different way. By the way, I'm not anti-poor. I live within the poor. I grew up in Kala. I built a house, live in Kala with the poor. I don't romanticize people who are poor. I live with them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is correct to think that the way you can solve the problem of poor people is through dependence. Now, again, 2 weeks ago, we were discussing with Ricardo Hausman. I'm becoming fascinated with him. He says to me, you know what, you minister, the problem you guys are doing, you have excluded people from the economy.
Yeah.
You are not focusing on inclusive growth. You have excluded people from the economy, and then what you are doing to compensate for this exclusion is to pay them. Now, should we not be focusing in including people into the economy? I don't have easy answers to that question. It's an important goal to think about. In the meantime, I accept that there will be those of our society who can't, we take income support as a transition towards an inclusive growth, not make it a permanent feature of our society. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make, we tend to pile up whenever there's a problem. We think of a grant. We've got, for instance, take extended public works. We've got public employment program. We've got community development workers. We've got a whole range of these grants. Every time a problem comes, we think of a new one. I think one of the things we need to be thinking about, if really we're going to provide income support, is it not appropriate to consolidate all of this and say what is the best or optimal way of supporting or providing income support to the vulnerable?
Yeah.
So those are my 2 points I can make on this issue.
Yeah, and a big issue because, 3% of GDP, about 222 billion rand going into this. It is a lot of money, and every cent that goes towards the vulnerable is showing that the unemployment is high, that infrastructure is not happening.
The figure is bigger than that.
So what is the figure now accurately?
It's bigger than that because what you are looking at is what is called the old age, child support grant,
Yes.
and so on.
That's excluding what we've just added to it now.
Yeah, if you add extended public works program, public employment program, the 350 alone is going to cost us 444 billion rand. So if you add all of that, it's coming closer to 200 billion rand.
Yeah. So this now leaves us at a point where you've got these grants, then you've got SOEs. So you're trying to support these SOEs as well. You look at something like Eskom. We can't function without Eskom. The president said that the government is not the job creator, it is the private sector, but the government creates a conducive environment for business to do business in this country and invest in this country. Without electricity, nobody's going to invest here, which means you need to keep Eskom afloat. That's just one of the state-owned entities of a list that is struggling right now. You are playing hardball with them, I know, but you can't play too hardball because they are the things that make the country function.
The problem dates back if you take the electricity one. In 1998, we said we needed a split. That was a white paper of 70-30% split between public and private on a supply of the electricity. What we did not do was to create a legislative framework which allow the private sector to participate in the electricity supply industry. What has been the outcome of that? We realized that after the outages of 2008, we needed some private sector participation. Then we started in 2010 creating the environment and bringing in IPPs. Now, the effect of that delay is that almost 90% of electricity in the country is still with Eskom, and therefore makes Eskom indispensable. And you can't avoid, then you are forced because of that to do everything to save Eskom. And as a result, from 2008, when we started with the outages, to now, we've got spending most of our efforts and funds in saving Eskom than in making sure that we've got a reliable electricity supply. Those are two different things. And my argument is that while we're saving Eskom, we should put in more effort in getting more electricity into the economy. It's a huge constraint to growth.
Yeah, it really is. I want to go to our first question. We'll continue chatting as we go along, but we have got a room full of incredible minds. So I think, if I remember correctly, our first question was coming from in the corner over there. Is that right? Yeah, please, go ahead. Please introduce yourself and then pose your question.
Hi, good morning. My name's Tony Ehrenreich and I'm with Kusatu. I really want to commend the Minister on the measures that responded to the social wage issue and the SRD grant, because that certainly goes a long way to providing some relief for people. But there's two questions I have on the budget. The first one is, while we're reducing debt, there doesn't seem to be a huge stimulus focus of the budget. The amount of jobs we're creating under the presidential program has declined in what it was last year, so some thoughts about that. And then on SARS, a big part of the extra windfall has been attributed to the cost of commodities. But I think there's been a good job in SARS in collecting revenue also. And it's important to identify what the sources is so that we know how that can be a part of the recurring expenditure in the budget. So those two questions. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Tony. My eyes are failing me to see far back in the room. I'm glad that we've got Labour in here because this has to take up quite a big crunch of our conversation. So, Minister Q, let's talk public sector wages.
Look, I mean, I don't have an answer as to, if you look at the public sector wages, the argument is, the unions are saying, look, your problem is not headcount. Now, if your problem is not headcount, where is the problem? Then people say, no, your problem is because over the years you've had wage increases which are higher than inflation. Now, how do you resolve that problem? That's a debate we're having with the unions. We've got to resolve that problem because if you can't deal with headcount, then you must get wage moderation. One of the two must come. Not an easy question. It's not an easy issue to handle it. And part of the problem is that even the bargaining round is upset. We tabled the budget in February. In March, we start the negotiations. So the unions are accusing us, no, you have already decided the outcome up front because you've attached a number. So that also needs one way or the other to be changed. But we are going to have an serious engagement. We've got a 4-day meeting in March, from the 28th to the 31st of March, grappling with this question.
Yeah. Because this bill, I mean, if we put numbers to this, it's massive. I mean, over the next 3 years, the remuneration bill will fluctuate. 682.5 billion for 2022-23, then drop to 675 billion in 23-24, and then rise to 702 billion in 2024-25. And it's getting bigger because it is good news that there is positions that are being hired. But I mean, this bill is huge, and there's still back payments that are lingering over you. Can we as a state afford something like this?
Let me just complicate the matter. There's a constitutional court case.
Yes.
If that constitutional court case goes against us, that's what we're warning about as a risk in the, I might not have said in the speak, but if you read the budget review, we lift that as a risk. So the possibility is that the amount may be higher than that.
Yeah.
And it raises also the whole issue of affordability and so on and so on.
Yeah. So can the state afford this?
If I look at the numbers, I believe we cannot afford it. It's easy to say, let's tax. Even that base is becoming narrow. You know, there used to be about, I don't know, Momo can check about the figures, I suspect in Chris, we'll probably come down to about 5 million people. As a result, people have lost jobs. So that base is narrow of personal income tax. Companies that we're supposed to tax are retrenching people. which is a function that they're not profitable. Company tax, you are taxing profitability. So companies are not profitable. So if you're saying VAT, everybody says, no, we are taxing the poor. So it's not an easy task.
No, it isn't. That's why when we saw you smiling yesterday, I was like, okay, it's a nervous smile.
No, I'm
it's a good
smiling
one.
because now, at least the conditions for now
are okay. But smoke screens in a way as well, because as we heard, luckily for commodities, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
But we are nowhere near out of anywhere right now. We're in the middle of a massive storm, but we're weathering it.
Let me just say, if you can contain the growth of these issues which are related to consumption expenditure, we can contain them. There's no doubt, in my view, that we can continue smiling. All we need to do is for all of us to begin to agree that there's a future out there, and if that future, in order to us to build that future, we need to take some decisions which may not be comfortable for now. But we are trying to say, let's take those decisions, but in the long term, they will have a better future for all of us.
All right, let's get some more questions from the floor, and then after this next question, we'll quickly take a break. So I know we had Tony in the corner. Would somebody raise their hand? There were quite a few hands risen. Let's just get another question. I think, was there somebody at this table over here? That is exactly what I want to see. Stand up, stand up. What is your name? I told the viewers earlier that we do have some learners that are here with us in the room today. So it is so nice. What is your name? What school are you from?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nesipo Funda, and I'm from Manyana High School in Kailicha.
Lovely to meet you.
So, Minister, firstly, I would like to congratulate you and your department on how you have managed to distribute the budget fairly. So, you said yesterday that you will give ESCOM 136 billion rands to pay off its debts. So, what are you going to do to make sure that ESCOM does pay its debts and without the money being misused? Thank you.
Hey.
Akucimelanga umbane eskom eKhayelitsha.
You better answer properly, because this is the future. They're going to shout at you.
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I was in another one last night where Old Mutual and Nedbank were having students. They were also asking me difficult questions. Yeah. That's a difficult question. Not only are we giving them 136 billion, we've already, that one they've taken. There's 88 billion coming, going to them. The question is, what are we going to do to make sure that ESCOM uses this money productively? We don't have load shedding. We don't have a whole range of things. Now, it's a conversation, and maybe because I'm on a public platform, it's a discussion we're having with the people responsible for running ESCOM, that it's important that the money that we get to ESCOM, we must realize value from it. Right? The CSIR has done some studying of how much damage to the economy the load shedding has done. The study says it's 338 billion rand. I can't remember from which period. You can remind me, viewer, I don't know from what period. But of that, 35% of that damage was only last year. 120 billion rand. So something needs to be done about making sure that ESCOM does the right thing. Because it seems to me we're not better off than we were in 2008 when we first started with the outages. Yeah. So ESCOM, we've got to concentrate on getting ESCOM to do the right thing, but we've got to make sure that there are other players in the system. In the absence of that, we will continually be held at ransom by ESCOM.
All right, we need to take a break. We'll continue to take some more questions from the audience, and I'm hoping that we'll hear a bit more from our learners in the room, particularly about education, because that's taken a big chunk of the budget. It always is. That's the big portion that goes to education. But are we seeing the results of all that money going into education? I think I know the answer, but we'll ask the minister and get some comments from the floor after this. So, quick break. We'll see you after this. One, two. Hi, sorry, good morning, everybody. Just, we're not back on air yet. We've got 1 minute until then. Can I get a show of hands who wants to ask a question next? We've only got a little bit of time, and I urge you to ask questions, because that's what these breakfasts are about, is to actually get questions from the audience. So, on this side of the room, are there questions? Can we get a mic to you on this side of the room? Okay. There's a lady there. Okay, one over there. Next question. Where will the next question be coming from? So we got one there. Is there another one? Where? Sorry, did somebody know? Nobody here? Any questions from this side? Come on, guys. In school uniforms, I want to get you to ask questions. Nobody from business. Nobody has a single question about the budget. Weren't you lucky that you...
I think there's a piece. Is it working?
It'll come on in a second as soon as we go live. I think you've paid everybody off not to ask any questions in the room. You're very lucky. Okay. Well, we've got one question in the meantime over there, and so nobody else. No questions. No, you're lucky.
No, Tony Ehrenreich.
Okay, hold on one sec. Coming to us now. All right, welcome back, everybody. So continuing our conversation with the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, after he announced his maiden budget yesterday, and lots of reactions coming through to the budget speech. Many people saying that this was a very friendly budget. It was, one that didn't rock the boat at all. It was to steady the ship, which is something that I think a lot of people are agreeing with. And we're just having a conversation with a lot of invited guests that are in the room, and of course, the Minister who has availed himself to us this morning. So again, Minister, thanks very, very much for allowing us to be here with you. And also, I know that there are a couple of community radio stations that are broadcasting this particular breakfast live. So we're very happy to have them in the room with us as well. And I'm hoping that their listeners are going to be posing questions to the Minister, and then we'll be able to ask them as well. So just a warm welcome to those that are listening on the community radio stations. Minister, I interrupted you just before we came. You were going to say something.
There's a piece of what Tony Ehrenreich was asking, which I'd deal with. I don't want to rock my relationship. We come from the same union.
Oh, really? Ah, okay.
We come from the same union. I was his just secretary general. So the public employment program, he says we've reduced the amount. Yes, of course. But we've increased the numbers of people. That's what I want to tell him about. We've increased the number. For instance, in that number, public Home Affairs is bringing in another 10,000 young people who are going to be utilized to digitize the Home Affairs. So the numbers are growing, and I want to assure him on that point. Although we've reflected, it was 11 billion, we've now made provision for 18 billion for that program over the next 2 years. But I want to assure him that there's a focus on delivering public employment, but in a qualitative way. That's why if we take the Home Affairs, in the next 2 years, you will have a pipeline of young people in 2 years who would have been trained on the ICT stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a matter, it's not, we're doing well.
Good.
I told journalists yesterday when they were to, said, no, relax. We're doing well.
There's a question coming from the lady at the table there. Hi, good morning. What is your name? Your question.
Morning. Thanks, Leanne. My name is Linda McGlomer, and I am the president of the Association for the Advancement of Black Accountants in Southern Africa. Good morning, Honorable Minister. I think what we have today, and even from the question that was asked by the future of our country, is just about how we're going to make sure that these funds that we are talking about are going where they should be going. And mine is more of a comment and a message of support to you, Minister, to say thank you for your maiden budget speech and what you plan to do, but as an association with accountants and the bean counters, also to pledge support, because I think we raise a lot of the concerns, but also how about the solution? And I think organizations like ABASA do form part of that solution. So to you, Minister, also to pledge that support around dealing with some of the issues that are also in the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me just say, there's somebody who I spend much time in my department debating and arguing with, sitting right on my left, Edgar Session. I'm coming to your point. We're fighting with him over the infrastructure. He comes to me angry, he's carrying a cup of coffee. He says, Minister, your problem is not money. I said, what's the problem? He says, your problem is capacity to deliver. I'm coming to you then, Abasa. I then said, what we should do, he says, why don't we ask even one company, just say a big company, and said, build all the schools. I looked at him. He says, you know what? Your problem is going to your clan. And my clan is my party. My clan is going to my party. He says, we try to do with PPEs. We organize one company, Imperial, to do all of those things. You know what happened? Your clan revolted. So what I'm narrating the story, but I'm coming to a point, Linda. And that point is, in order for us to deliver this, including the infrastructure effectively, what we need to do is to mobilize the skilled base in our country. So, in discussing the same matter then on these schools with my counterpart, the Minister of Education, she then says, no, what we need is not a construction company, but a consulting and engineering companies to do something tanky, to be able to supervise the construction company, supervise everybody, but we need, in other words, I'm trying to say we want to change the delivery model we're using at the moment and bring those skills across the system. There may be areas where we are going to need accountants, there will be areas where we are going to need engineers, but The point is taken.
Imtiaz Suleiman, I know, is in the room. We'll get the mic to you now. Imtiaz, are you in the room? There you go. I want to talk to you, Imtiaz, as well, from Gift of the Givers. And obviously, this is a lot to do with Imtiaz. Good to have you. I'm going to ask you for your response to the budget. And also, we know that Gift of the Givers has been doing a lot of work in the health sector, helping out disaster areas, helping where you can. What's missing? We know that the money goes, but it's organizations like yours that step in to do the work that the health sector should already be doing. So this is the point of where we talk about the money gets allocated, but the service delivery doesn't happen. And this is where the problem comes in. Now, you work on the ground, you work with communities, you see what's going on. So I'm going to ask you for your views on what's happening.
Thank you, Leanne. Good morning, Minister. Congratulations on the budget. I just want to make some things in context. Given the difficulty that the Minister has faced in terms of state capture, the cost of the SOEs, COVID-19, the unrest in July, and the economic climate, the job losses, the decreased tax base, the failure of exporting to a large extent, all that has put a great burden on the country. And to come up the way you've come up, I don't think anybody could have come up with anything better. It's a huge achievement. And your honesty comes through, your integrity comes through. Leanne, before I answer those questions, we should not be looking at the budget only. We should look what's important for the development of the country. And that government can't do that alone. We need government, together with the private sector, as well as civil society, to work together. You set the template, you're saying SOEs, you're putting tough love to them, you're creating more jobs. And the type of jobs I like are service-oriented jobs. For example, you want to bring 12,000 policemen into the service, which means you're fighting crime and you're creating jobs. By the same token, I would say in a lot of government sectors, we have too much of jobs which are not necessary. People may not be happy with that, but you can't have a chief director, a admin, another director, 6 people and nobody can sign the forms. And that delays service delivery. Everything takes so long. It's bloated service, more money getting lost, we're wasting money. So as much as the unions aren't happy, we need to take off some of those jobs, they naturally leave, but we get jobs in other sectors which are service-oriented. Why is the health sector falling apart? We said we're doing lockdown on the 15th of March 2020. Well, that wasn't lockdown, it was declared as a national disaster. And on 27th of March, we said we're doing lockdown. We were probably the only country in the world that did a lockdown without a wave. So it was a premature lockdown that affected lots of jobs in the country. And we needed to say, and we said we're preparing the hospitals. We didn't prepare the hospitals. We didn't put oxygen points. We didn't put more staff. The hospitals were already overstretched. The workers were overstretched, the healthcare workers. They were exhausted before COVID. And in COVID, it was a disaster for them. Over 1,000 died. We didn't replace that. And still after COVID, we haven't replaced it. We put a moratorium on job creation in the hospitals. So not job creation, it's not job creation. It's life saving, it's a necessity. We haven't done that. And the type of budgets that we have, we need to implement jobs in this kind of sector. Teachers, we lost 2,000 teachers. Are we replacing the teachers? It's service-oriented. There's no point having another 1,000 classrooms and you don't have teachers. We can put up all the equipment in hospitals, but you don't have the personnel to run it. It makes no sense. So we need to have budgets geared towards service orientation. Police, teachers, doctors, psychologists. And that's another point we've got to look at. We have all these different courses in universities, which many of them are dead end. NSFES pays all this money. A student does honors, masters, PhD, and walks the street. Because our society doesn't cater for those type of jobs. Government is serious. We've got to sit with the private sector and sit with the universities and take a hard decision. Shut down those departments. They're not bringing any benefit. And increase the enrollment in departments where we can put jobs into the economy. We need many more psychologists. You go to the universities, they tell you out of 300 students, they're taking 21 for masters. 7 educational, 7 counseling, 7 clinical. The country is in a mess in terms of healthcare. If healthcare workers are asking for psychologists, can you imagine for the rest of the country? The police, the teachers, parents who have lost kids, kids who have lost parents. We need increased psychologists. This is job creation with purpose-oriented. We need to fix the system. And those are the kind of things I feel will make a huge contribution. You're right to see how ESCOM is using the money. We find there's inflated prices. A cancer machine in the private sector, you buy it for 20 million. In the public sector, the same machine you buy for 100 million. And this brings another point. Corporate societies, corporate companies are always there to say, government is corrupt. I have a question. Who corrupts government? The corporates have a huge role to play in corruption. That's why we have state capture. And we need to fix that system up. And this country needs morality, spirituality, values, and ethics. You're right, you don't need money. You need these values to fix the system. And if that values are in place, we can fix the country. And as I said, we need to do this together. Whilst government can't pay for doctors or healthcare workers and can't pay for infrastructure to schools and education, we call on corporates in this country. And even for Mandela Day this year.
All right.
Let's spend all the money on infrastructure. Forget about food parcels and stationery and toys. Let's use all our money to fix the schools, hospitals, and infrastructure for Mandela Day this year. Thank you very much.
All right, Imtiaz, thank you. Sure, Minister, there was a lot said there. Do you want to respond?
Oh, let me start by saying, I think health workers have done a great deal for South Africa. On that score, we would all be in agreement. The enormous sacrifice they did in dealing with the pandemic is difficult to calculate the impact. In terms of personnel, both, I've made the point, starting in the medium-term budget policy statement, that the funding that has been utilized to bail out state-owned enterprise has had a huge impact on frontline functions such as health, education. The unfortunate part is that those services are delivered at a provincial level. And the unfortunate part then, the provinces carry the burden, and we all accuse them of being. But what we're trying to do, which we said in the medium-term budget policy statement we want to do, is to shift and redress that imbalance. We've already done that. If you look at the budget that we've presented now, we've said how much is going into provinces to deal with for teachers, how much is going in for doctors, how much is in provinces. Gradually, we're beginning to shift resources in that direction. I think that is what this budget is attempting to do. But there's a broader question of corruption, which he has raised.
Yeah.
And I think we are also raising in the budget speech. And what we're saying, what we can do from a budget perspective is to ensure that the institutions that are intended to fight corruption are properly capacitated and resourced. That's what we're saying in the budget. But that is also corruption. To fight it requires a mobilization of society. Not only because, as Imtiaz is saying, there will be companies that are part who are corruptors. So what we need to do is a mobilization of society along a particular value system to ensure that all of us, not only, I was looking at a march one day by public servants marching for corruption. I was asking myself, but if these people say they're marching against corruption, but who's corrupt? Because the day-to-day work in government is done by them. So what we need to do is to make sure that civil servants themselves are organized, they can tell the truth, society, business, and everybody I mean, somebody was, I'm not going to mention now, tells me a story that he was approached by a businessman who said, look, I've got a tender here, but these people say, this is the road, I must go and re-gravel a road in the middle of nowhere. But having got the tender 17 million, they said, give 2 million to this one and 2 million to that one, and take the rest and take a hike. And this guy says, can I go and put just a site so that somebody can, a building site so that somebody can see that I've done some work? They said, no, 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 no. After rains, no one will see that. Just disappear. Now, if that businessman did not disclose that, nobody would have known about this corrupt activity in government. So, but what I'm trying to say is that it needs cooperation amongst all of ourselves to achieve, to deal with corruption. It's all very well for people to complain about corruption, but when we see it, we don't act. So we need to mobilize society around that issue.
Yeah.
The last point
Yeah.
is that all of these things we're talking about, including growing the economy, cannot succeed unless there's a compact, a common vision amongst all of us who work together to achieve that. The president has said we need to finish that in 100, make sure that we can lock ourselves in the next 100 days between ourselves, business and labor and everybody, to say what is it that all of us are going to contribute to ensure that there's growth. I was saying to Martin last night, Martin Kingston, I was saying to him last night, how many days are left out of that 100? Because the two of us have got to make sure that that happens.
Yeah. Not many days.
Yeah.
They're flying past us. They're flying past us. And Minister, we're listening to everything you're saying. And, you know, I suppose South Africans are very, very despondent. You know, when you listen to what's happening on the ground and when you hear the day-to-day living, I mean, I'm going through the Twitter feed as well, and I'm seeing what South Africans are saying, that it's well and good that we're all sitting in this room having a breakfast, talking about these things and talking about the billions, and then we talk about the trillions that we actually owe. But then they look around and they look at their lived experience, and it's making no difference because only a certain group of people are just getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and laughing in the face of poverty. I know that you say you've still got your house where you grew up and you came from and you understand poverty and you know what it's all about, but nothing's being done to fix it, and this is the problem. Firstly, jobs are not being created. I hope things will change. The reality is that roads are falling apart everywhere around the country. IT infrastructure is falling apart. The complaints of people wanting to renew something as simple as a driver's license, it doesn't work, and we keep throwing money at the problem, and yet nothing gets done. The home affairs system, same thing. People are complaining. They're saying, we can't even do something as simple as that. The reality is that all of this money and our debt burden. Now, we saw the EFF marching to Parliament yesterday, talking about
they're
this.
marching for a different matter. They were marching for me taking cheap money.
Well, okay, we'll take what they said they're marching for. I mean, and this is the reality, is that we are in debt as a country to the tune of, 4.3 trillion, expected to move up to 5.4 trillion rand. And we want to develop infrastructure that's not coming, but we owe this much money. How are we going to do this? I know I've asked this to you in every angle that I possibly can, but I just feel like the answers are not coming through as to how we're going to manage this debt and still create jobs.
I mean, the issue is, I go back to Edgar's philosophy, that the issue is not money. The issue is to get the right skills and do the right things. I accept that we sit here, we talk billions. Where I come from, we just want one or two things in my village. We just want fencing and a 3-kilometer road which you can travel. Right? A 3-kilometer road. When it is raining and I'm in my village, I can't park my car in my house because that road can't go in. Now, what is required is what Martin and I and Linda from Abasa are talking about. How do we mobilize these skills using the resources that government has, shift also resources to go into local government? You know, local government, they've got 246,000 kilometers of road, local government, 246,000 kilometers of road. We give them 2 billion per annum for that. So what we need to do is also ourselves to be shifting resources in that direction. When I talk about it's not only money, but skills to ensure that that happens. So I can't sitting here be defensive and say, sitting here, I appreciate the problem and I know it. I'm giving you an example where the road to my village, we only pray if there's a funeral that it won't rain because it's going to be difficult to get the body into the village. So those are practical lived experience people have. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. In the ANC, when we have these Zoom meetings, I normally use my background as that road to just to prick everyone's conscience. So I understand the problem, but what is needed is for all of us, we don't all have answers, but what is going to be needed is a movement of these municipalities, provincial government, ourselves, the private sector, and get the thing done.
I'm going to get personal, but you're the Minister of Finance, and the road in your village looks like that. Why? Who should have fixed it, and why is it not fixed?
The municipality tells me they do, in all those villages, they do 7 per annum. All right? There are a lot of villages. I asked the question.
Good.
Because it belongs to the municipality, and the municipality says, no, we do 7 roads per annum. In your village, we did that one in 1 year, I can't remember what year, it goes in another direction. The one that it goes in your home will probably take another 7 years.
So I've worked something out here through everything we're saying. Would you agree, and to a certain extent, the blame lies in the municipalities and how they manage? Because you can make decisions on the top, but if it's not being implemented and followed through and given to South Africans the way it should be implemented, and sometimes the money gets given back unused.
Accept that.
And that's where the problem lies.
There are 2. The first one, no, maybe 3. The first one is a skills issue, all right? The first one is a skills issue. The second one, related to the skills issue, the money is not used. But the third one is corruption. The third one is corruption. It's a problem. So we've got to go down and attack all those 3. We know what the problem is. What we need to do is how are we going to deal with that problem?
Yeah. And that's where we're going to leave it.
Let me just give you an example. We've
a
just
very quick one, because we've got to say goodbye in 30 seconds.
No, fine.
Oh, no.
I was going to give, you know, like Mangaung in Bloemfontein, we've got a new leadership starting from November.
Yeah.
A new leadership from November is unstable with the new leadership. And if you look at it, it's got to do with the political problem in the area. Instead of looking at fixing potholes in Bloemfontein and so on, there's a council meeting to overthrow this one, a council meeting to overthrow that. You know? So we've got to sometimes take a harsh view and deal with people.
And that could be said for the greater party in itself as well. And that's the note I'm leaving it on, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Minister, what a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. Another hour coming on SABC News, but thanks so much to our SABC2 viewers. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.